Hello, everybody. It's Shamila Ramjawan coming to you from Cambodia. I have a very special guest on my show today, and she is Dr. Nancy Vanessa Brown, who was born in Costa Rica and moved to the United States at the age of 9 with her mom. She was unable to speak English when she first arrived, and she was bullied and teased by other students when she was in school. I'm not going to say too much about her, but I think, as we get into the conversation, you're going to learn a lot about Dr. Nancy Brown. So let's dive right into it. Hello, Dr. Nancy Brown. How are you doing?
Hello, good morning over here, and thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on your show. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
It's
I'm
my
doing
pleasure. I'm so looking forward to hearing from you because you have such a great bio. So many challenges, so many obstacles in your life, so many experiences. You can share as much as you possibly want to because the whole idea behind the Red Corner Show is to inspire and motivate other people by sharing your story. So please, like I said, share as much as you possibly can because you have a great story and a lot of people can learn from the trauma that you have had while growing up. So welcome to the
yes.
show.
Thank you again. Thank you so much for having me, Doctor. I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much for what you're doing for everyone, sharing your platform and giving us a voice to get our message across to the world internationally. So again, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and blessings to you. So again, my name is Dr. Nancy B. Brown Willis, and I'm originally from Costa Rica. I grew up there. I was born there, grew up there. My mom was a single mom. She raised me the best she could. She was a maid, and it was definitely very challenging. We at one point we were homeless. We got kicked out in the street from one of the people that she worked for. It was raining that day. I remember it very clearly. I was probably like probably 5 years old, 6 years old. And it was raining outside and they put us outside with our bags
Oh
and
no.
we did not have where to go. My mom reached out to one of her sisters who, she had a lot of family who she was like allowing to stay at her home. She really didn't have the space for us, but she still took us in. And so, we made it work. We just, try to stay as much as we could out of the way, but she was so loving and so giving of her space to allow us to stay there. So my mom kept looking for a job while she was there. She later found a job working with this guy. His name was called Don Pablo. Don normally is like what you call like a sir. And so we ended up staying with him. Well, not staying with him, but working for him as a maid. And, he had a dog. He had dogs. He had a lot of dogs. He had German Shepherds, and I love German Shepherds because I grew up with them. We used to train the dogs, and I was small, but we were learning how to command the dogs to do certain things, and I really fell in love with that breed, the German Shepherds. Probably like when I was about 6 years old, my my mom and I were, living with this guy now he owned a lot of farms. He was very, very, very wealthy. He owned a lot of land. So I remember his one of his main businesses was in the coffee industry in my country. So he had a lot of employees, a lot of homes. We used to fly in private jets. So we used to, whenever we had to get to and from, if it was like a pretty far location or if it was vacation, if we were vacationing, we would get on a little private jet and get there. And so, I was able to go to a private school. I went to a school, I was the only African, Afro Latina in the school. Everybody else was white, Hispanic. And so the kids used to bully me. They used to call me ugly black girl. big lip, big nose, you're so ugly, you're a black girl, negra, you know. And when you hear the word negra in Spanish, is like black, but it just sounds a little more, it's more offensive and a little more, it's just very degrading and it's very mean and rude. And so I hated my skin color. I hated my lips. I hated my nose. I hated my forehead. I hated my hair. I hated everything that the kids pointed out to me to be a problem. Um, Again, living with Don Pablo, we we were, you know, comfortable. We lived in the small house, which was next to his big house. Um, you know, his big house, he had in the big house, he had everything. You know, he had all the amenities. Everything was beautiful. Excuse me, that's gonna stop in 2 seconds. Um, but you know, we lived in a small house, but we were well taken care of. Um, and around age 6, he ended up getting a Doberman Pinscher, which was a different breed of a dog than the dogs that I was used to having around me. And just to go back again to the Doberman, the one that we had with us all the time, her name was Asta. Her name was Asta, spelled Asta. She was my best friend. Okay, I the I used to lay on her back, ride on her back, you know, tussle with her on the ground, lay on her, go to sleep, wake up. And at that time, I didn't have friends. She was my best friend and my only friend. And and so we were very, very close. And I was able to look in her eyes, and I could see that she was somebody I could trust. She was someone that I can trust. I had a lot of love and trust for her. So we ended up getting a new dog. His name was Morris, Morris, and he was a Doberman Pinscher.
Mhm.
And when we got this dog, automatically I knew something was wrong because I did not feel safe around the dog. The dog had a crazy look in his eyes. Whenever I looked in his eyes, I was like, nope, I don't trust this dog. And then my mother would just say, oh, he's just a teenager. Don't worry about him. It's just because he's a teenager. And I said to her, no, sorry. I said to her, no, something about the dog, you know, does not feel safe. Um, and the dog would just look at me and just do these quick reactions, again, that did not allow me to feel safe. Okay. And one day, it was the day that I graduated from kindergarten. My mom told me to go across the yard and, you know, from the big house to our smaller house and to go change my clothes. And so, you know, I had my dress. My dresses were custom made. So I loved my dress. I didn't want to take it off. But my mom said, go across the yard and take off your dress and put on your house clothes. I just came back from my kindergarten graduation. So I said, okay. I went across the yard. I went in my house and took off my dress and laid it on the bed. And then I put on my house clothes. And when I was coming back across the yard, because between the two houses, there was like a big pole in the middle. And that's where the two dogs were attached to that pole with their chains. My dog, Asta, and then this new dog, Morris. So when I came out, I just noticed that he was on top of her. I didn't know what was going on. I was 6 years old. And automatically, that was my best friend. So my reaction was to defend her, get off of my friend. So I went up to him and I slapped him in the butt. And, you know, he reacted to that. He's a dog. And he turned around and he literally just grabbed me by my neck.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I remember my body was just going like this to and from like a rag doll on the ground. And I remember, you know, I remember looking in between the attack, looking down, and I'm seeing her by his leg trying to get him off of me. So I was protecting her first, and she was protecting me. And my mother said that I was calling her, and she was ignoring me because I always call her for silly things, which I still do to this day. So she said she was ignoring me. And to this day, I'm telling you, I remember the attack very, very clear. I don't remember calling my mother. So I tell my mother, I'm telling you, the angels were calling you for me, because I remember just starting to fall asleep in his mouth. And my mother called, she said that I called her again. So something said, well, let me just see what she wants, because she almost did not come. And then she got up, she checked, and then she walked into this attack. And it was just blood all over the place. It was bad. I remember looking up and looking at the sun, and then I falling asleep. But I remember feeling a lot of peace. I remember being in peace and feeling just very peaceful. And my mom, she used like a stone to get him away from me, and a mop stick, and used it to pull the chain. She said that she felt like God illuminated this mop stick because she was able to use that to get me out. And she said if she didn't see that, she wouldn't have been able to intervene in any way. So she used it, and he did get away, and she was able to pull my body away. I woke up again when she was putting my body on the ground. And then she started putting some sheets on the couch, and then she laid me on the couch, some white sheets on the couch, and then she laid me on the couch. And then we didn't have a phone, so she had to go back across the yard past the dogs to get to the phone to call 911, to call the police. I don't know what's the number in Costa Rica, but to call for the ambulance. Then she had to come back across the yard to get me. And right when she left, I knew it was like after school program time. And there was a show that I used to always watch. It was called Burbujas. And that's bubbles in Spanish. And I remember laying in the couch and wanting to get up to put the TV on, because this was my favorite show in the world. And I was trying to reach for it, but I could not move. And I didn't understand. I didn't know what had really happened to me. All I knew was that I could not move, and I was trying to reach for the TV. And I said, okay, I'll just wait till she comes back. And she came back, she picked me up, and, we lived on the top of a hill. You had to go through these big old gates. So she had to walk past the dogs with me again, and walk down the hill and through the gates. And then she just held me and waited for the ambulance. And she was like, I could see her like kind of freaking out. She was freaking out. She was very scared. And she was trying to keep it together. She was crying. She was trying to keep it together. And I remember just looking at her, and it was like the sun was behind her, or it was illuminating her face somehow. But I remember just thinking how beautiful my mom was, and I just fell back asleep out of conscience. And I got in the ambulance. Then when we got there, one of my mother's friends was a nurse at the hospital. So, everybody's rushing. They're rushing me on the bed. They're rushing down the hall. And I remember my mother's friend touching me and letting me know that she was there and everything was going to be okay and I wasn't alone. So, God will always send you an angel every step of the way. So again, we made it to the surgery room, and they could not. My case was very difficult. The dog got like the main artery. They were getting ready to start stitching me up, but the landlord, the owner, the boss, my mother's boss's wife, she decided that they were going to send me to a better hospital, a more higher end hospital, because my case, if they would have done the surgery, they were just going to close the holes, and I would have eternally and died. So they took me to another hospital, which is very pronounced, very, very respected hospital in my country. The name of the hospital is Hospital Bíblica, and that's the Bible hospital in English. And that's where they did the surgery. And I have a scar. It's about 7 to 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches long down my neck, but that's what they had to do to save my life. They were able to repair the damage on the inside. He bit me on my face, so I have a scar all across my face here. Bit my face, he bit my neck, he bit my head, and he bit like my legs and my back. So they stitched, that he bit. And then they were able to, thank God, save my life. And
Wow. Well, here you are, I'm speaking to you and you've overcame all of those challenges in your life. But, you have quite a story and you've been through the most from
right.
what I read in your bio. Tell me about your book, the book that you launched, My Costa Rican Hummingbird Sings Breaking the Bondage and Answering the Call, which was written in 2017. Just tell me a little bit about the book. What inspired you to write that book?
So I'm also a child sexual abuse survivor. I went through child sexual abuse at the age of 5. Okay, so I was, I overcame a lot of things, went through divorce, went through single motherhood, I went through, I attempted suicide when I was a teenager. I went through alcoholism. I've experienced a lot of depression and overcoming a lot of those things, dropping out of school in the 8th grade, becoming a single mom, and becoming pregnant at 14 years old, and just a lot of different things that I overcame. But through it all, I really focused on myself becoming. I'm an artist. I'm in the beauty industry. I'm also an advocate, but in my artistry is in the hair industry, and
Mhm.
so was winning awards. I had just got like a master's in the hair loss industry. And I just was focused on being the best version of myself and not looking back at my past pain or trauma. And
Mhm.
I was at my social media, and I was working on a hair loss book. And I was looking at my social media, and I came across this little girl named Caitlin who died by suicide. She hung herself um, after going through sexual abuse from a stepfather. And I was able to relate to the story. And I heard God say to me at that moment, how dare you survive and not help others survive? Because that story could have been me. Um, and I fell back on my couch and I started crying. It was very, very, um, it's just a very spiritual moment. I remember crying, and then God was telling me, you have to be brave and you have to stand up. And I was like, that's not the story I want to share. I want to come out as an expert in the hair loss world. I'm working on my hair loss book. I'm doing this. I don't want to tell anybody this shameful story. I was so ashamed and so embarrassed, so humiliated. And then I wrote it down. I wrote down Brave Girls Stand Up because God put that in my heart. And I started walking past this paper because I had it on my wall with my sticky notes that I always put on my wall. And I would walk past it. I put it in like in the living room area. So I had to walk past it every time I left. And the name was not like, the words were not leaping out of my stomach, out of my spirit. So I stood in front of it, and I was in a very spiritual state at that time, speaking to God, because I was also fighting the spirit of suicide during that time. I was in the fight for my life during that time. And so I stood in front of the paper and I kept reading it. Brave girls stand up. Brave girls stand up, but it wasn't leaping. And then I heard God say, the brave girls are not just going to stand up, they're going to rise up. You're in the city of rise up. And I'm living and I'm in Georgia and Atlanta. So I'm like, what? So I wrote Brave Girls Rise Up, which is the organization that I'm still working on, trying to, I'm Brave Girls Rise Up. So I still do the work in the community. But that I started crying, and again, I started working on my book right away. Actually, I didn't start working right away. I went to visit my mom a few days after that, and a commercial came on for a Christian publishing company. And then I said, okay, God, you're sending me the signs. So I contacted them, and then I started working on my book right away. It took me 3 months to work on to have my book pretty much completed. And like Holy Spirit was guiding me because I was in a fight for my life. And so I wrote about surviving suicide, and God was showing me that the suicide rate was going to be going up extremely, extremely, extremely. And this was 2017. And I was just under direct order of the Holy Spirit. And everything he told me, I just wrote it. And today, when I look at the book, I'm in awe because unfortunately, I lost my sister to suicide in 2020. And so, it's just been coming, a lot of just keep coming around that I'm like, oh my God, really? Oh my God, really? And I'm speaking about a lot of the topics that I wrote about in my book. So,
Okay, awesome. Wow, what a journey. Anxiety, depression, mental health, sexual abuse, suicide survivor, and the list goes on. Well, congratulations on making it through all of that, all of those life challenges, and see where you are today. You could now share your story with the rest of the world. Thank you for that. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing it with us as well. But just a word of advice for somebody who's been close to where you've been. I wouldn't say 100% because you've been through a lot. But what advice would you give to somebody who, for example, is going through depression or mental health fatigue or issues right now? And, also taking into account that COVID has come and damaged a lot of lives in terms of mental health. So, what would be your advice to people right now?
yes, my advice would be just to remind people that you're never alone. There are people who actually really, really care and are very committed to the work and advocacy of suicide prevention. So I would say, remember that you're never alone. If you're around people that are negative, get yourself away from those people. There are communities, there are groups that you can join. Some are via Zoom still, for those that are still home, because some people are still coming out of COVID. They're still very, very secluded, isolated. It's important to try not to be isolated. Reach out for help. Reach out for support groups. There are communities. There are, again, people again that care. So really, just the importance of trying not to stay isolated. Staying away from negative people, people that make you feel down about yourself, people that are not encouraging you. I encourage people to journal, to write,
Mhm.
to get out, because a lot of times when we bottle them in, they come out the wrong way through addiction and all of that. And if you're dealing with addiction, try to get some help, try to get some support groups, get involved in some support groups to help you break the addiction. Take every day at a time. Don't beat yourself up. Every day is a new day for change. Don't let people hold you to a cross or hold you to your past, or don't allow yourself to walk in shame. And again, there's people that care. So getting your story out, it doesn't necessarily have to be on a platform like this if you're not ready, but you can start with counseling, you can start with therapy, or you can even get a coach. There are healing coaches. I'm a healing coach. A lot of us are in that area where we help people to get to the steps of getting the right help.
Yes. What a full basket of advice. Thank you so much for that. But, as you said, if people are not ready to come on a show like this, they shouldn't. But I encourage anybody to come on the show if you have a story to share. It's a very informal chat show. Come, just be yourself and just share your stories and open up, because I think there's a lot of people that bottle up a lot of things and they need to get it out and they need to talk about it. I'm so glad that we have people like you that are willing to share with the rest of the world, because you do find people that face embarrassment, or they don't know what others are going to think about them after they start sharing their stories. But at the end of the day, you're human, you've been through it, and now you want to change other people's lives, because right now in this world, there's a lot of people going through what you've been through. Just take me through your podcast. So you've got your own podcast. What do you cover? What sort of topics do you cover on your podcast?
So the name of my podcast is My Hummingbird Sings. And we cover all different types of topics, but they really focus on healing, hope and healing. So it could be, let's say I'm speaking to a city council. I'm downtown right now. I have a meeting with a city council. They may share their story of how they got to where they are, but they'll also share something that they went through to help them to help people relate and understand that even though you're here, or even though you've been here, you can still overcome, and there is hope. Also, testimonies of survival, other people who have had near-death experiences, they share their stories of survival, very encouraging. And then spiritual testimonies. A lot of people have had spiritual encounters. I have. Definitely getting those stories out, because a lot of people are going through a lot of spiritual encounters, especially uh, being isolated, coming out of COVID, having to really look within themselves and starting to hear from Holy Spirit, and people feeling crazy. Some people feel crazy when they start to hear from this voice that's trying to direct you and guide you into a different place, into your purpose. And so letting people know that you're not alone. There are the good voices, and then there are the bad voices. What voice are you from? And helping, to get their message out as well.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that you would like to share? I know you have lots to share, but anything that stands out for you that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, right now, the focus for me is talking about suicide prevention and really encouraging people to know and to understand that they're not alone.
Yes.
Now, let's say we've launched that number, that 988 number, so people know that they have a crisis hotline that they can reach out to. They're not alone. So that's really the main message for me right now, is letting people know that it doesn't matter where you are today, what walk of life you've been through in the past. You don't have to keep living in that shame. Part of healing is sharing, like on this show, sharing your story, it out. And that's a lot of times that's the first step, is just sharing and getting out and overcoming that embarrassment, is very important. So surround yourself with people that are positive, do research online, read positive quotes. What I do is I use a lot of scriptures to help me along the way in my healing, and surrounding myself with people that encourage my healing and support my healing and don't make me feel ashamed. Very important.
Love it. What a great way to end the show. Thank you, Dr. Nancy Vanessa Brown Willis, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and words of encouragement to anybody out there. We're all survivors. We've all been through it, and we're here to help others. And I wish you the best of luck in all your empowerment programs that you're doing, coaching and mentoring others. And I'm sure you're making a huge impact in lots of lives. So thank you so much once again. If any of you would like to be on the show and share your journey, please contact me on the Red Corner Show at gmail.com. So it is redcornershow@gmail.com. Until next time, take care, be safe, and we'll catch you again. Bye.